Hi guys, today I am filming my novelizations and film tie-ins video. This is currently my shelf of novelizations, film tie-ins that I've read. I got them all organised after the last few that I'd read, but obviously there's still more in my read shelves somewhere. This was inspired by a video of one of my friends on Instagram. He's done a similar video and I will link his video down below. I'm not sure how many parts this is going to be in yet. This was originally supposed to be a very different video. I was going to originally be standing in front of the camera and talking about these, but if you think about it, this is how far I'm zoomed in. I'm standing at the other side of my room at the moment. I couldn't actually get myself and my tripod and my camera into this space beside my bookcases, get my bedside table moved out the way and still be comfortable with stuff at my back. I'm going to do it slightly differently to how I originally planned out, which means taking all these books off the shelf. And think about that. I will get this set up and we're going straight into the video. I have Madame Doubtfire by Anne Fine. Another really old novelization. I think again I've had this for years. I think this may be actually a film tie-in, so it's not a novelization. I'm sure I read this when I was in school actually. I have a feeling this was in the bookcases that we had in primary school. That's kind of given me like ringing a bell there. Yeah, based on the novel by Madame Doubtfire. Again, there's quite a lot of changes to this. You can see how manky this book is and all the creasing that's in it and the splits. My camera's picking this up, I hope so. But it's pretty much wrecked. I wouldn't be surprised if I actually took this from the classroom. It's a book I really must revisit one of these days because I don't remember too much about it, and I wonder if some things have changed from the book to the film. I have the Mask novelization. I have two Mask novelizations. There's one of the Cher film as well, but I haven't read that yet, so it's not here. But this is by Steve Perry. This is obviously the Jim Carrey version. I read this one recently as well, and it's quite good. It sticks to the storyline. Doesn't really go away from the storyline, it sticks pretty damn close to it. A couple of dialogue changes here and there which were probably changed completely by Jim Carrey, completely ad-libbed his lines. I did find the Dorian, there's sections of Dorian which was famously played by Peter Green in the film. I found his sections quite boring actually. I think it worked much better as a film because even though he was playing the villain, there's something quite charismatic about Peter Green. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he's quite captivating and I don't find that came across very well in the book. So I kind of skimmed his sections. They weren't the best. Men in Black by Steve Perry. How interesting is that? I've got The Mask by Steve Perry and I've got Men in Black by Steve Perry. I didn't realise that at the time when I was putting these in. I was just putting them in alphabetical by film title rather than anything else. The strange thing about this is there's Men in Black 1 and 2, but there is no Men in Black 3 novelization, which is quite disappointing. I have looked for it. I haven't looked for it again recently. I think I looked for it at the time of putting this shelf together and I still couldn't find it. I find it quite strange that there wasn't actually one written for Men in Black 3 because I love that film. I think that has to be my favourite out of the Men in Black films. I do like the first one because it is quite, like, that's the film that got me hooked into this series. But I do have a special place in my heart for the third film. I think it's really sweet. And it made me cry. So you can see Steve Perry there, protecting the earth from the scum of the universe. Standard movie cover logo there as well. Then you have Men in Black 2. I've said this before, but I wonder why they don't continue on unless they find a different author. The official novelization by Esther Friesner, story by Robert Gordon. The novelization is written again by a different author. I have Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now it does say that it's written by Jane and John Smith, but this is not the case. Now I'm pretty sure this was actually written by another author. Yeah, this book is really written by Cathy Dubowski. I've got another one of her books, and she did quite a few of the Sabrina novelizations as well. But again, it's not obvious, it's just up here. Even there, it's written as Jane and John Smith. And then you have colour photos inside as well. I mean, it's a good novelization. I just don't like the way that it's not Cathy Dubowski. You really do have to search for her name. Because I was checking the back, the front, the spine there, everything to find it. Then we have My Girl by Patricia Hermes. A book that I bought twice. So this is why, again, I've sorted out my novelizations, because I did not remember having this. And I bought it again. And I think I left it in the green room at work again. But this is a really old copy as well, I think. I think I've had this probably for around about a similar time as Home Alone 2, I reckon. But you have the movie cover there. Not really much of a blurb there. £2.50 for that originally. There's no photos. It's quite an easy read, like it's quick, it's not very long at all. It's just under 200 pages. Oh look, it's got all the Babysitters Club books in the back of it. Hands up, who remembers Babysitters Club? I used to love those. I never really owned many of them. I mainly got them from the library, but I must have read them all about a zillion times. Then you have My Girl 2, also by Patricia Hermes, which is quite good. So we actually have an author following on to the sequel as well, and not having someone else write it along with them. Standard movie cover. Better blurb this time. £3.50. This has gone up in price. No photos again. About the same kind of length. It's 179 pages. Bit about the author there. And you also have all the kind of point romance. Another bunch of books that I probably read from the charity shop at one point. And then you've got the point crime books as well, because it is a point book. Where did it say it was a point book? There. Then we have The Mummy novelization by Max Allan Collins. I can't remember if I had the rest of these. I'm sure I've seen The Scorpion King in my to-read list, but every time it comes up, I'm never in the mood for it, because it was never my favourite film. Like, I never rewatched that film from the Mummy series. I rewatched the first two. I'm not a fan of the third one, although it's still alright, but I miss Rachel Weisz. I don't like the reboot with Tom Cruise. But this is another one by Max Allan Collins. Again, he normally does excellent novelizations. He's really good that way. It's actually quite a heavy novelization as well. It's got a bit of weight behind it. No photos. I will need to check if I've got the other ones of these. Maybe if I can read them as back to back, I might be able to read the Scorpion King one and actually get into it. Then we have Neuromancer by William Gibson, a book I have never actually gotten into. It was bought as a gift, and pretty sure it's got an inscription in it as well. I've tried it a couple of times, I've never actually gotten into it. Pretty sure there is going to be a film of this. I'm sure I saw something that it was going to be the same guy who directed Deadpool that was getting involved with it. I may be wrong in saying that, but I'm sure I saw something recently about that. I wasn't going to include this in here. I was kind of in two minds about including it, because technically I was thinking for some reason this was the Johnny Mnemonic tie-in, and it's not, having read the back of it. But it does talk about the Matrix though, which is quite interesting. Let me know if you've read this book, or if you've read any other books on the list. Obviously, as I say, this was bought as a gift. I've never really broken the spine or anything like that. I think I've read the first couple of chapters and never gotten very far from that point. Then we have Never Been Kissed by Cathy Dubowski. She comes up again. I told you so she was going to come up again. This is the novelisation of the film. To be honest, it's not my favourite film. Probably only seen it maybe once, twice at best, but I haven't seen it recently. And again, it's another old novelisation as well that I have. There's colour photos in this one. No, sorry, there are black and white photos in this one. I have the novelisation of Now and Then, and it's by Harriet Gray. I wouldn't say this was a true novelisation. I read this during a quiet hour at work. It is very, very thin, as you can see, and I really wouldn't say it's one of the best novelisations because it doesn't really go into... It just sticks to the children's point of view. So it'd be like, say for example, It. I've now seen both films. I've seen the original film with Tim Curry as Pennywise and also John Boy Walton, Richard Thomas, who sports a very dodgy ponytail. And I've also seen the remake. And I like both films. I do find them quite enjoyable. Issue that I have with this book is it would be like if it was just told from the point of view of the kids, if it never went on to them as adults. So you don't really get an insight into the children as adults until like you get a couple of brief points. So you've got the kids there, but Lord help me, it's like basically told from their points of view. So you've got Christina Ricci, I'm sure she died, Thora Birch, good grief, and I forget her name now. She normally turns up in these kind of films around this period. But it's really told from their point of view. It doesn't go into, for example, Demi Moore's, Rita. It doesn't go into their kind of backstories. It just tells it from the point of view of the kids, and it's a bit disappointing that way. I mean, this book is 103 pages, so I really wouldn't be paying too much for this book if you can get a hold of it. And it does have colour photos. So you don't really see them as adults, they're just as kids. You might see it on the last page. No, you don't, you've just got their house. Then we have Pearl Harbor by Randall Wallace. Is again, along with, good grief, along with Braveheart, it's probably one of my oldest novelisation books. Home Alone 2 as well. I've had these for years and I haven't read them recently. At some point, if I ever get my to read list down, chances of that happening, I will probably have to go back and reread some of these because I just haven't read them in years. Again, it's quite a dense, thick book. It's filthy, and it's been quite heavily creased during its time. You can see a big crease there. Like, it is a good book and it is a good film. I do love this film. I do like rewatching it, and I know people disagree with me there. It is quite widely hated. Then we have Rain Man. This was another one that came up when I was looking for kind of like 80s movie novelizations. And this is by Leonore Fleischer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. There is the name there. Obviously you have that image again. Standard image of the two of them. Again, it does stick quite closely to the film. There are some changes if I remember correctly. It's been a little while now since I read it. Price $2.99. I love looking at these old book prices. It's so amazing. There's no colour photos anywhere in this book. Just the one on the cover there. But again, excellent novelisation if you want to pick it up. I have Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the only Robin Hood film that I will admit to actually watching. I've never seen any of the remakes. I know I've tried to watch the one with, my mind's gone blank as to his name now, I can see him in my head as well, but I've tried watching that one. I didn't like it. This is the only one I've ever enjoyed, but I don't think it's dated very well. And I also do like Robin Hood Men in Tights as well. But this is by Simon Green, as you can see there. Got quite a nice cover. Again, this is one of my older novelizations. I've had this for ages. £2.99 again. There's no photos. It's just a standard novelization. I have Seven by Anthony Bruno, and this was a really good book actually. I quite enjoyed it. I watched the film and then I read the book, and it was quite interesting because it kind of clarified a lot of stuff for me. Like, it kind of went into a lot of background. There's actually a lot of background to Morgan Freeman's character. I would say there's a lot of background to him, about his wife, about his job and everything like that. So it is quite interesting in that aspect. It also clears up a lot of the stuff that I really couldn't understand in the film, like the different killings and everything. So I think it is an excellent novelization in that way. I did pass it on to my dad to read after I'd read it. I was like, you have to read this. It is a really good book of the film, and it does cover a lot as well. What I would say about this book is you don't see a head in the box. The next book that I have here is The Sixth Sense, and you're suddenly rubbing your eyes and thinking, why am I seeing double? I have two of these books. Rewatched the film and I knew I had the novelization, and I went hunting everywhere for it, could not find it, repurchased it, reread it, and then a while later I was going through my books looking for something else and I found this. So I now have two copies of this. This is another reason why I wanted my novelizations, film tie-ins all in one place, so that I can easily find them again and not have this reoccur. So I'm just going to go through the book because it's not I don't need to go through both of them, they're identical, but it's by Peter Lerangis, I want to say. Where is the author's name on this? You've got the surname on there, but really there is no... Oh, look out for The Sixth Sense, Secrets from Beyond, an original book series based on the movie, coming soon. Ooh. But nowhere does it say Peter Lerangis. You really only find this when you actually search for the book online. I'm sure I've just gone through this, nowhere does it have Peter Lerangis' name anywhere, and that's when the book starts. So that's quite disappointing that, again, you really only have his surname there in very small writing on the spine. It is a good novelization, sticks very closely to the film. It does come with full colour photos, no spoilers here. You shouldn't really need to be getting warned for spoilers in this book or this film, because you should have seen it by now. Now the next ones I have are Speed 2. There's no Speed novelization. One of my favourite films of all time, one I will still go back and rewatch. I love Keanu Reeves in that. Sandra Bullock's a little bit on the annoying side in this film. I used to like it, and then I rewatched it recently and I was like, she is so irritating actually in the film. But there's two novelizations of this, strangely enough. One on the left I refer to in my review as the junior novelization, and it's written by Cathy Dubowski. The one on the right is significantly thicker and is written by George Ryan. It's more in depth. I would say the Cathy Dubowski one skims over a lot of stuff. It's quite strange that way, and it has the colour photos inside, but as you can see, and I'm sure the beginnings are different as well, they completely change, and it's just a more kind of simple version of the film. And it's only 117 pages long, compared to this one which is 250 pages long by George Ryan. This one doesn't have any of the colour photos, it has a different beginning to the film, and it's a different beginning to the standard novelization as well. I would say if you're going to pick anyone up, I would pick up the George Ryan version. This is probably not worth it apart from the photos, and I mistakenly bought it and then realised when I came home and looked at it that there was a different copy. But why have two copies of the same novelisation and not have a copy of the first